Before we dive into this powerful story of redemption and unexpected family bonds, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Tonight's tale will take you on an emotional journey through trauma, healing, and the courage to protect those who need us most. Enjoy the story. The storm hit the Maine coast like a vengeful spirit, hurling sheets of rain against Marcus Thompson's weathered cabin windows. Lightning split the darkness every few seconds, illuminating the churning Atlantic beyond his property. At 45, Marcus had seen his share of violence. 3 tours in Afghanistan had taught him that storms came in many forms. But tonight, something felt different. His daughter Sarah pressed her face against the kitchen window, her 16-year-old features tight with concern. "Dad, the power's been flickering for an hour. Should we check the generator?" Marcus barely heard her. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped his coffee mug, a tremor that had nothing to do with the cold. The sound of wind battering the walls triggered memories he'd spent 2 years trying to bury. Claire's accident had happened on a night just like this. Rain, wind, the phone call that shattered everything. "Dad?" Sarah's voice cut through his thoughts. "I'll check the boat shed," he muttered, pulling on his rain jacket. The PTSD episodes were getting worse lately, and staying busy helped. "Stay inside." The rain hit him like bullets as he stepped outside, each drop a reminder of monsoons in Kandahar. He forced himself to breathe, counting steps to the old boat shed where he stored supplies. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's when he heard it, a sound that stopped him cold. A child's muffled crying barely audible above the storm. Marcus froze, his military training kicking in despite the panic rising in his chest. He moved toward the sound, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness behind his shed. What he found made his blood run cold. A woman, maybe late 20s, crouched against the wooden wall with a small child clutched to her chest. Her left eye was swollen shut, dried blood streaked her cheek and her clothes were soaked through. The little girl, perhaps 4 years old, shivered violently in a thin pink dress. "Please," the woman whispered, her voice raw with desperation. "We just need one safe night, please." Marcus's flashlight shook in his hands. The sight of blood sent him spiraling, bodies in desert sand, the metallic taste of fear, Claire's broken form in the hospital bed. But something in the woman's eyes anchored him. Terror, yes, but also fierce maternal protection that reminded him of Sarah's first steps, her scraped knees, every time he'd ever needed to be strong for his daughter. "Jesus," he breathed, fighting through his own demons. "How long have you been out here?" Since yesterday morning." The woman tried to shield the child from the rain. "They're looking for us. If you could just get inside, now." Marcus didn't wait for her response. He scooped up the trembling child, feeling her tiny arms wrap around his neck with desperate trust. "Come on." The woman struggled to stand, favoring her left leg. Marcus caught her elbow, steadying her as they stumbled through the storm toward his cabin. Each step felt like walking through a minefield of memories, but the child's weight in his arms kept him grounded in the present. Sarah met them at the door, her eyes wide with shock. "Dad, what? Get towels, hot coffee, now." Marcus's voice carried the authority of his old rank. Sarah disappeared without question. He guided the woman to his couch, gently setting the child down. Up close, the damage was worse. Finger-shaped bruises around her throat, a cut lip that had reopened, clothes that spoke of hasty flight. The little girl clutched a ragged stuffed bear, staring at Marcus with enormous blue eyes. "I'm Emma," the woman whispered. "This is Lily. We won't stay long, I promise. Just until the storm. You'll stay as long as you need to." The words surprised Marcus. He hadn't made a decision like this since leaving the army. No one deserves to be out in this. Emma's composure cracked, tears mixing with rainwater on her bruised face. "Thank you. God, thank you." Sarah returned with towels and a steaming mug, her teenage awkwardness replaced by genuine concern. She knelt beside Lily, offering her a stuffed elephant from her own childhood. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now." As Marcus watched Emma wrap the towel around her daughter, something shifted inside his chest. a feeling he hadn't experienced since Claire's death. Purpose, the kind that came from protecting something precious. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside his cabin, Marcus Thompson had just made a choice that would change everything. He didn't know that Emma carried secrets that could destroy powerful men, or that armed mercenaries would soon be hunting them all. All he knew was that two broken souls had found shelter in his broken world, and for the first time in 2 years, he felt truly alive. Marcus guided Emma to the guest room, his military training overriding the tremor in his hands. The woman could barely walk. Her left ankle was swollen, possibly sprained from running. As he helped her settle onto the bed, she winced, but didn't complain. "I need to check your injuries," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. The sight of blood still triggered flashbacks, but Lily's trusting grip on his sleeve anchored him to the present. "I have basic medical supplies." Emma shook her head weakly. "I'm fine, just tired. We've been walking for days." "From where?" Marcus knelt beside the bed, examining her ankle with practiced efficiency. 3 tours had taught him field medicine. "Who did this to you?" Her body tensed immediately. "It doesn't matter now, we just need to disappear." In the living room, Sarah was wrapping Lily in one of her old blankets, speaking in gentle whispers. The 4-year-old hadn't said a word since arriving, but she clutched the stuffed elephant like a lifeline. Sarah, despite being only 16, had always possessed an intuitive understanding of pain. "They're going to keep looking, aren't they?" Emma's voice broke the silence. Marcus met her eyes, brown, intelligent, and haunted by something deeper than physical abuse. "Who's they?" "People who think they own us." Emma's jaw clenched. "People who believe some lives don't matter." The words hit Marcus like shrapnel. He'd heard similar phrases in Afghanistan, usually right before everything went to hell. But this was different. This was his home, his daughter under the same roof. "How long since you've eaten?" he asked instead. Emma's eyes filled with tears. 2 days, maybe 3. I gave Lily everything I had." Marcus stood abruptly, his decision crystallizing. Whatever Emma was running from, whatever danger followed her, a mother who starved herself to feed her child deserved protection. He'd failed to protect Claire, but he wouldn't fail again. In the kitchen, he prepared soup and sandwiches while monitoring the weather radio. The storm would rage for hours, perfect cover if anyone was tracking them. His hands moved automatically, muscle memory from countless nights feeding Sarah after Claire's death. "Dad?" Sarah appeared in the doorway. "Lily fell asleep on the couch. She's holding my old bunny rabbit." Marcus smiled for the first time in weeks. "You always were good with scared things. Is she going to be okay? Emma, I mean. She looks..." Sarah struggled for words. "Broken," Marcus finished. "Like us, after Mom." Sarah nodded slowly. She'd grown up fast after the accident. Too fast. But tonight, caring for Lily seemed to remind her what childhood innocence looked like. They ate in relative silence, Emma forcing down small bites while Lily remained curled against Sarah's side. The storm continued battering the cabin, but inside, something warmer than heat from the fireplace began to bloom. "Thank you," Emma whispered, as Marcus tucked Lily into Sarah's old bed. "I know this is dangerous for you. If they find us here..." "They won't." Marcus's voice carried absolute conviction. "And if they try, they'll learn why the army trained me." Emma stared at him with something like hope. "You don't understand what you're risking." "Maybe not, but I understand what I'm protecting." Marcus glanced toward the bedroom where Sarah was reading Lily a bedtime story. Family protects family, even when it's temporary. As he settled onto the living room couch for the night, Marcus felt something shift inside his chest. For 2 years, he'd existed in survival mode, getting through each day, raising Sarah, fighting his demons. But tonight, purpose had found him again. Outside, the storm began to weaken, but Marcus knew the real tempest was just beginning. 3 days had passed since the storm. The bruising around Emma's eye had faded to ugly yellows and greens, but something else had changed. She moved through Marcus's cabin with increasing confidence, no longer flinching at sudden sounds. "Tell me about Afghanistan," Emma said quietly, sitting across from Marcus at the kitchen table. Lily was napping on the couch, finally peaceful after days of hypervigilance. Marcus's coffee mug stopped halfway to his lips. Nobody asked about Afghanistan. Not Sarah, not his therapist, not even Claire before she died. Why? Because you understand what it's like to see things you can't unsee. Emma's voice carried a weight that belied her 28 years. To have your hands shake when you're trying to help someone. She'd noticed. Of course she had. Medical training, he was beginning to suspect. The way she'd cleaned Lily's scrapes, checked her own pulse, assessed injuries with clinical precision. I was a medic, Marcus found himself saying. Saw too many kids caught in crossfire, too many mothers. He stopped, the familiar tightness gripping his chest. Breathe with me, Emma said suddenly, her voice shifting to something professionally calm. 4 counts in, hold for 4, out for 6. Focus on my voice. Marcus stared at her, surprised by the authority in her tone, but he followed her breathing pattern, feeling the panic subside. How do you know? Experience. Emma's smile was sad. Different battlefield, same wounds. That afternoon, Sarah found Emma helping Lily with a coloring book, speaking in what sounded like medical terminology simplified for a child. The heart pumps blood like a water pump, Emma was explaining, pointing to a picture. And your brain is like a computer that controls everything. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Are you a teacher? Emma hesitated too long. I used to work with children. But Sarah was 16, not 6. She caught the evasion, filing it away with growing curiosity about their mysterious house guests. That evening, Marcus experienced his worst episode since Emma's arrival. The sound of a car backfiring outside sent him into full combat mode, diving behind the couch, Sarah's scream echoing in his ears. When awareness returned, he found Emma kneeling beside him, her hands steady on his shoulders. You're in Maine, she said firmly. It's Tuesday evening. Sarah is safe in the kitchen. Lily is coloring at the table. You're safe. Marcus's breathing slowly normalized. I'm sorry. Jesus, I'm sorry you had to see. My father had episodes too, Emma said quietly. Different war, same ghosts. It's not weakness, Marcus, it's survival. But Marcus caught something in her tone, a slip. Emma had mentioned an abusive relationship running with Lily. She'd never mentioned her father being a veteran, another inconsistency in a growing list. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, Emma joined Marcus on the porch. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, moonlight painting silver paths across the waves. I need to tell you something, Emma began, then stopped. About why we're really running. Marcus waited, recognizing the moment when someone decides whether to trust completely or hold back forever. It wasn't a boyfriend, she whispered. It was my father. And Lily, she's not mine, not biologically. The words hung in the salt air like a confession at a confessional. I found her in a hospital, Emma continued, her voice barely audible. She was scheduled for a procedure she didn't need, with people who weren't her parents. I couldn't let them take her. Marcus felt puzzle pieces clicking into place. Emma's medical knowledge, her sophisticated vocabulary, the way she carried herself despite the fear. Who is your father, Emma? Emma's hands shook as she pulled a newspaper clipping from her pocket. 3 days old, from the Portland Press-Herald. The headline read, Senator's daughter missing, feared kidnapped. The photo showed a woman in a white coat, professional smile standing beside medical equipment. Dr. Emma Catherine Blackwood, daughter of Senator Robert Blackwood. Marcus stared at the woman beside him, then at the photo. Same face, different world. My God, he breathed. You're a fugitive, Emma finished. And if they find us here, they'll kill you and Sarah to keep their secrets safe. Marcus looked through the window at Sarah reading bedtime stories to Lily, their heads bent together over a picture book. Two innocents, unaware that their world had just become infinitely more dangerous. Then we make sure they don't find us, Marcus said simply. Emma stared at him in amazement. You don't understand. My father has resources, connections, power, and I have something he doesn't. Marcus stood, his decision crystallizing like steel. Nothing left to lose and everything to protect. For the first time since arriving, Emma smiled genuinely. It transformed her entire face, revealing the brilliant doctor she'd once been before her world collapsed. But neither of them noticed the black sedan that had been parked on the coastal road for the past hour, its occupants watching the cabin through high-powered scopes. Sarah woke to the sound of laughter, something that hadn't echoed through their cabin in 2 years. Following the sound to the kitchen, she found Lily perched on a chair, giggling as Emma braided her dark hair with surprising skill. "There," Emma said, securing the braid with one of Sarah's old hair ties. "Now you look like a princess." Lily beamed, touching her hair with wonder. "Pretty like Sarah." "Even prettier," Sarah said, entering the kitchen. The transformation in both Emma and Lily was remarkable. Gone was the terrified woman from the storm. In her place sat someone who moved with quiet authority, organizing breakfast with medical precision. "Good morning, sweetheart," Emma smiled at Sarah. "I hope you don't mind. I found ingredients for pancakes." Sarah noticed immediately how Emma had arranged the kitchen, medications sorted by type, first aid supplies easily accessible, exits clearly mapped. This wasn't the behavior of an abuse victim. This was tactical planning. "You're very organized," Sarah observed carefully. Emma's hand stilled briefly. "Old habits. I used to manage complex situations." Over breakfast, Marcus watched the dynamic developing between the four of them. Emma had an educator's instinct, explaining everything to Lily in terms that sparked curiosity rather than fear. Sarah, naturally nurturing despite her teenage attitude, had appointed herself Lily's protector and translator. "Uncle Mark," Lily suddenly announced, pointing at Marcus with her fork. "You're Uncle Mark." Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. "I'm not." "Yes, you are." Lily's 4-year-old logic was unshakable. "Sarah is my big sister. Emma is Emma. And you take care of us. That makes you Uncle Mark." Emma's eyes filled with tears at the simple declaration. For a moment, the professional mask slipped, revealing someone who'd perhaps never experienced unconditional family acceptance. "Uncle Mark it is," Marcus said softly, surprising himself. That afternoon, while Lily napped, Emma helped Sarah with calculus homework, a subject that had been defeating the teenager for weeks. "Think of derivatives as rates of change," Emma explained, her teaching instincts taking over. "Like monitoring a patient's vital signs. You're not just looking at the numbers, but how quickly they're changing." Sarah stared at the suddenly comprehensible equations. "You're a doctor, aren't you?" Emma's pen stopped moving. "What makes you say that?" "The way you organize things, how you helped Dad with his panic attack, the medical terms you use with Lily." Sarah met Emma's eyes directly. "Plus, you just explained calculus better than my AP teacher." Emma sighed, recognizing she'd been caught by a perceptive teenager. "I was. Pediatric surgery." "Was?" "It's complicated, Sarah. Some truths are dangerous." That evening, Marcus found himself cooking dinner for 4, the first time he'd prepared a real meal since Claire's death. Emma moved around the kitchen like a dance partner, anticipating his needs, seasoning dishes with instincts that spoke of education beyond medical school. "My grandmother taught me," Emma said, catching his questioning look. "She believed doctors should understand nourishment as medicine." "Where is she now?" Marcus asked. Emma's face clouded. "Dead. Like everyone who tried to protect me from my father's world." The statement hung heavy between them until Lily's voice broke the tension. "Is this a family dinner?" Sarah laughed, ruffling Lily's hair. "What do you think makes it a family dinner?" "Everyone eats together. Everyone talks nice and nobody yells." Lily counted on her small fingers. "And Uncle Mark doesn't look sad." Marcus realized she was right. For the first time in 2 years, the crushing weight in his chest had lifted, not disappeared, but eased by purpose and connection. After dinner, they settled in the living room. Sarah taught Lily card games, while Emma helped Marcus review his medications for PTSD, adjusting dosages with professional precision. "These aren't right for your symptoms," she murmured, studying his prescriptions. "The combination is creating more anxiety than it's treating." "You can tell that from looking." "I can tell from watching you these past few days. Your triggers, your recovery patterns, how you respond to stress." Emma met his eyes. "I spent years treating trauma patients. You're not broken, Marcus. You're just healing wrong." As they prepared for bed, Lily made an announcement that stopped everyone. "I want to stay here forever." Emma knelt beside her, gentle but firm. "Sweetheart, this is Uncle Mark and Sarah's home. We're just visiting." "But we're a family now," Lily insisted with 4-year-old certainty. "Families stay together." Sarah looked at her father, something unspoken passing between them. Marcus had been existing in survival mode since Claire's death, but these 3 days had reminded him what living felt like. "We'll see, little one," Marcus said finally. "Families do try to stay together." That night, as Marcus performed his security checks, a routine that had intensified since Emma's revelation, he found her standing by the window, staring at the dark ocean. "They're out there, aren't they?" she whispered. Marcus joined her, following her gaze to where he'd spotted the black sedan earlier. It was gone now, but his military instincts screamed danger. "Probably. But they're being careful, which means they're not sure what they're dealing with yet." Emma turned to him, vulnerability replacing her usual composed mask. "I've dragged you into something that could destroy your life. Sarah's life." "You dragged us into something worth fighting for," Marcus corrected. "I haven't felt this alive since Afghanistan, since before Claire died. Maybe that's worth the risk." Emma stared at him with something that might have been wonder. "You mean that?" "Lady, I've got a daughter who's smiling again, a purpose that doesn't involve just surviving another day, and a reason to use the skills the army gave me for something good." Marcus's voice carried absolute conviction. "Your father's people want a war. They picked the wrong veteran." Outside, unseen watchers adjusted their positions, unaware that the broken soldier they were surveying had just discovered something worth dying for. The black Suburban with tinted windows made its 3rd pass down Harbour Road in 2 hours. Marcus watched from behind his kitchen curtain, his military instincts screaming warnings that had kept him alive in 3 combat deployments. "They're not locals," he muttered, noting the vehicle's pristine condition and government plates. In a town where most cars bore salt stains and fishing gear, the Suburban stood out like a uniform in a civilian crowd. Sheriff Donovan Mills appeared at Marcus's door an hour later, his weathered face grim beneath his campaign hat. Don was 50, built like a linebacker, and one of the few people who understood Marcus's particular brand of demons. Vietnam had carved similar scars into the older man's soul. "Got visitors asking questions in town," Don said without preamble, accepting Marcus's offer of coffee. "Professional types, expensive suits, federal badges, asking about suspicious strangers who might have arrived during the storm." Marcus's hand stilled on his mug. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that make my teeth itch. They're showing pictures. Woman in her 20s, small child, calling her armed and dangerous, claiming she kidnapped the kid." Don's eyes were sharp despite his casual tone. "Funny thing is, they won't tell me which agency they're with. Just flash badges and expect cooperation." Emma appeared in the doorway, Lily on her hip. She'd overheard enough to understand the threat. "How many of them?" Don studied her with practiced law enforcement eyes. 6 that I've seen. 2 teams, rotating shifts, professional surveillance, not local muscle." He paused. "Ma'am, I don't know what you're running from, but these aren't regular federal agents. Real feds would have contacted my office officially." Emma's face went pale. "They found us." Marcus stood, his decision crystallizing. "Don, I need you to trust me on something. These people aren't here to protect anyone. They're here to disappear witnesses." "Marcus, I can't tell you everything, but that woman is a doctor who saw something she shouldn't have. People with serious power want her silenced." Marcus met his friend's eyes. "The kind of power that reaches into federal agencies." Don was quiet for a long moment, studying Emma and Lily. Finally, he nodded. "Vietnam taught me to recognize when the official story stinks. What do you need?" "Time, and early warning if they make a move." After Don left, Marcus began preparations he'd hoped never to use again. From a locked basement storage room, he retrieved tactical equipment he'd kept from his army days: night vision goggles, communication gear, weapons he'd legally purchased but never expected to need. Emma watched him check ammunition with professional efficiency. You're preparing for war. I'm preparing to protect my family. Marcus met her eyes. All of my family. That afternoon, Emma began teaching Lily what she called special games, hide-and-seek variations that were actually escape protocols. Marcus recognized the training immediately. Emma was preparing a 4-year-old for tactical situations. If someone you don't know comes to the house, what do you do? Emma asked gently. Hide in the secret place until Uncle Mark or Sarah comes to get me, Lily recited, treating it like any childhood game. And if you hear the special whistle, run to the boat dock and wait in the small boat, Lily giggled. This is a fun game, Emma. Marcus's throat tightened, watching the interaction. Emma was systematically preparing for the worst while maintaining Lily's innocence, a balance that required both medical precision and maternal love. That evening, Sarah confronted the adults directly. I'm not stupid. There are people watching our house. Dad's acting like he's back in the army, and Emma's teaching Lily escape routes. Someone tell me what's really happening. Marcus looked at Emma, who nodded slowly. Your father's trying to protect us from some very dangerous people. I used to work in a hospital where I discovered criminal activities. When I tried to report it, they tried to silence me. So you ran. With Lily. She was going to be their next victim. Sarah absorbed this with 16-year-old directness, and now they've found us. It looks that way, Marcus admitted. Sarah was quiet for a moment, then surprised them both. Good thing you picked the right house. Dad was a war hero, you know. He just doesn't talk about it. That night, Marcus established watch rotations and emergency protocols. Emma demonstrated surprising familiarity with tactical planning, suggesting modifications that improved their defensive positions. Where did you learn that? Marcus asked after she recommended relocating their supply cache. Medical missions in Syria, Emma said quietly. I volunteered with Doctors Without Borders before medical school. We operated in contested areas where hospitals were targets. Another piece of Emma's puzzle fell into place: the tactical awareness, the calm under pressure, the ability to function in crisis situations. Around midnight, Marcus's radio crackled with Don's voice. Movement on Harbour Road. 2 vehicles heading your direction. Professional driving patterns. Marcus felt the familiar calm of pre-combat settling over him. Copy. Thanks, Don. He woke Emma gently. It's time. Get Lily and Sarah to the safe room. Emma's eyes were clear and focused. No panic, just professional assessment of the situation. How long do we have? Maybe 10 minutes, maybe less. As Emma gathered Lily, the little girl seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere. Is it time for the special game, Emma? Yes, sweetheart. The most important game we've ever played. Marcus checked his weapons one final time, muscle memory from a dozen firefights guiding his movements. Outside, headlights swept across his property, not the random patrol of curious watchers, but the deliberate approach of a tactical team. Remember, he called softly to Emma as she disappeared into the hidden basement room with both girls. No matter what happens up here, you wait for my all-clear signal. No one else's. Emma nodded, then surprised him by touching his arm. Marcus, come back to us. For the first time in 2 years, Marcus Thompson had something worth killing for, and more importantly, something worth living for. As the first black SUV turned into his driveway, he smiled grimly and chambered around. The war had come to his doorstep, but this time he was fighting for family. Storm of Redemption, Chapter 6, Medical Crisis. The crisis began at 3:17 a.m. with Lily's terrified scream piercing the night silence. Marcus bolted upright from his position by the window, combat instincts warring with paternal panic, as he found Emma already racing toward the guest room. Lily lay convulsing on the small bed, her tiny body burning with fever that seemed to radiate heat across the room. Her eyes had rolled back, showing only whites, while her limbs jerked in rhythmic spasms that made Marcus's stomach lurch with combat flashbacks. She's seizing, Emma said, her voice shifting instantly to clinical authority. Marcus, I need towels, lukewarm water, and your thermometer, now. But Marcus stood frozen, transported back to a dusty Afghan hospital where children's bodies had convulsed from chemical exposure. The metallic taste of panic filled his mouth, as Lily's small form reminded him of too many young casualties he'd failed to save. "Marcus!" Emma's sharp command cut through his paralysis. "I need you here. Lily needs you here." The use of his name, not his rank, not a clinical designation, but his name, anchored him. He moved with military precision, gathering supplies while Emma cradled Lily's fevered body. "Temperature's 104. Tate," Emma reported, her hands moving with surgical confidence as she checked pupil response and pulse. "Probable viral encephalitis, possibly meningitis. She needs immediate cooling and IV antibiotics." Marcus stared at her transformation. Gone was the traumatized refugee. In her place worked a physician with years of pediatric emergency experience. Her movements were economical, precise, driven by muscle memory that transcended fear. "I don't have IV supplies," Emma continued, evaluating their limited resources. "We'll have to use oral antipyretics and external cooling. Get me ibuprofen, children's dosage if you have it." Sarah appeared in the doorway, pale but determined. "What can I do?" "Cool damp cloths on her forehead and wrists," Emma instructed without looking up. "Not cold, lukewarm. We need gradual temperature reduction." For the next 2 hours, they worked as a medical team. Emma's expertise guided every decision, while Marcus and Sarah followed her instructions with absolute trust. The cabin became an improvised pediatric ICU, with Emma monitoring Lily's vital signs every 15 minutes. "Her breathing's stabilizing," Emma reported around dawn, exhaustion evident in her voice. "Fever's dropping to 102. The seizure activity has stopped." Marcus, who'd been holding Lily's hand for the past hour, felt his own breathing steady for the first time since the crisis began. "Will she be okay?" "I think so. But Marcus, this wasn't just a fever. Lily's medical history is complicated." Emma's voice carried weight that spoke of knowledge she hadn't shared. "The people who had her before, they subjected her to experimental treatments. Her immune system is compromised." The words hit Marcus like shrapnel. "What kind of experiments?" Emma's composure cracked slightly. "Neural development protocols. They were studying how trauma affects brain chemistry in children. Lily was their primary subject." Sarah's face went white. "That's why you took her. She wasn't just in danger, she was being tortured." "For 18 months, Emma whispered, tears finally breaking through her professional mask. "When I discovered the program, I tried working through official channels. That's when I learned how deep the corruption went. My father wasn't just enabling this, he was funding it." Marcus felt rage building in his chest, clean and focused in a way he hadn't experienced since combat. "How many children?" "Dozens, maybe hundreds. The program operated in 7 states, always under the guise of legitimate medical research." Emma's voice grew stronger with righteous anger. "They specifically targeted children from vulnerable populations. Runaways, foster kids, undocumented families. Kids no one would miss." The full scope of what Emma had discovered began crystallizing for Marcus. This wasn't just about corruption or abuse. This was systematic medical torture of children, sanctioned at the highest levels of government. "That's why the fake federal agents," he realized. "You have evidence." Emma nodded, pulling a small device from her jacket pocket, an encrypted USB drive. 3 years of documentation, medical records, financial transactions, correspondence between my father and program directors, everything needed to bring down the entire network. "And they'll kill anyone who threatens to expose it," Sarah said, understanding dawning on her young face. "They've already killed people," Emma confirmed grimly. "Dr. Martinez, who helped me document the evidence, car accident. Nurse Patterson, who witnessed the procedures, apparent suicide. Anyone who got too close to the truth." As if summoned by their conversation, Lily stirred in the bed, her eyes fluttering open. "Emma?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from the seizure. "I'm here, sweetheart." Emma immediately shifted back to maternal mode, checking Lily's temperature and pupil response. "You had a bad fever, but you're feeling better now." "Uncle Mark was holding my hand," Lily observed with 4-year-old clarity. "I could feel it even when I was sleeping." Marcus's throat tightened. In the past 6 hours, He'd confronted his worst PTSD triggers while fighting to save a child's life. The combination should have sent him into complete breakdown, but instead he felt stronger than he had in years. "That's what families do," he said simply. "We hold hands through the scary parts." Emma stared at him with something approaching wonder. "You called her family." "She is family." Marcus's voice carried absolute conviction. "They all are. And families protect each other." As Lily drifted back into healthy sleep, Emma began revealing more details about the conspiracy she'd uncovered. The scope was staggering, a network that reached into federal agencies, medical institutions, and congressional offices. At its center sat Senator Robert Blackwood, using his daughter's medical expertise to provide scientific credibility for horrors that defied comprehension. "They won't stop," Emma said quietly. "Even if we run again, even if we disappear completely, they'll keep hunting us. The evidence I carry could destroy too many powerful people." Marcus looked at his sleeping daughter, at Lily's peaceful face, at Emma's exhausted but determined expression. For 2 years he'd been hiding from life, letting trauma define his existence, but tonight had reminded him who he really was beneath the pain. "Then we don't run," he said simply. "We fight back." Emma's eyes widened. "Marcus, you don't understand what we're up against. I understand that you've been fighting this alone for too long." Marcus met her gaze directly. "But you're not alone anymore. You've got a combat veteran who's really good at breaking things, a brilliant teenager who sees everything, and a 4-year-old who deserves better than spending her life running from monsters." For the first time since the crisis began, Emma smiled, not the careful professional expression she usually wore, but a genuine smile filled with hope and gratitude. Outside, dawn was breaking over the Maine coast, painting the sky in shades of determination and possibility. While Emma slept beside Lily's bed, exhausted from the night's medical crisis, Marcus found himself unable to rest. He moved through his cabin with military precision, checking windows and defensive positions, when something caught his eye. Emma's jacket draped over a chair with the corner of a phone protruding from the pocket. The device wasn't the simple burner phone he'd expected a fugitive to carry. This was an encrypted satellite phone with government-grade security protocols. Marcus's hands trembled as he powered it on, military intelligence training warring with respect for Emma's privacy. The message history made his blood run cold. Encrypted communications with international contacts, coordinates for safe houses across 3 continents, financial transfers through Swiss banks. Most disturbing of all, a fake identification card bearing Emma's photo, but a different name, Dr. Catherine Marsh, with credentials from Johns Hopkins that looked absolutely authentic. "You weren't supposed to see that." Emma's voice from the doorway was steady, resigned. Marcus spun around, holding the phone like evidence of betrayal. "Who are you really?" Emma closed the door softly, ensuring their conversation wouldn't wake the girls. "I'm exactly who I said I am. Dr. Emma Catherine Blackwood, pediatric surgeon, daughter of Senator Robert Blackwood. But I'm also someone who's been preparing for this moment for 3 years. 3 years?" Marcus's mind raced through implications. "You've been planning this since before you discovered the experiments?" Emma moved to the window, staring out at the pre-dawn darkness. "I discovered them 3 years ago. But I didn't run immediately. I stayed, gathered evidence, built escape routes, established international contacts. I became someone who could disappear completely when the time came." The betrayal Marcus felt was visceral. "You've been lying to me, to Sarah, about everything. About the tactical details, yes. About being terrified for Lily's life, about running from my father's killers, about grateful for your protection. Never." Emma turned to face him, tears cutting tracks down her cheeks. "Marcus, everything I've felt in this house, everything I've shared with your family is real." Marcus studied the woman before him, trying to reconcile the terrified refugee with the sophisticated operative revealed by the phone's contents. The medical missions in Syria, was that part of the cover story too? That was real. I spent 2 years with Doctors Without Borders, learning to operate in war zones, building contacts with international human rights organizations. Emma's voice grew stronger. "When I discovered what my father was doing, I knew I'd need those skills to survive." The sound of footsteps on the stairs interrupted them. Sarah appeared, her 16-year-old instincts sharp enough to recognize tension. "Is everything okay? You two look like you're planning a funeral." Emma and Marcus exchanged glances, both recognizing the moment when secrets became impossible to maintain. "Sarah, sit down," Marcus said quietly. "There are things about Emma's situation that are more complicated than we told you." Emma pulled out her real identification, her medical licenses, and the encrypted USB drive containing her evidence. "I'm not just running from my father's criminal network. I'm carrying information that could destroy it completely." Sarah examined the documents with teenage directness. Dr. Emma Catherine Blackwood, daughter of Senator Robert Blackwood. She looked up. "The senator who's been all over the news lately for the corruption investigations?" "The same one, and the corruption goes deeper than anyone imagines." Emma's voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. Child trafficking, medical experimentation, murder, all coordinated from my father's congressional office. Marcus felt pieces clicking into place. "That's why you have government-grade communication equipment. You're not just a whistleblower, you're building a case." "I'm building an international human rights violation case that will destroy everyone involved." Emma's composure cracked slightly. "But to do it, I need to stay alive long enough to testify before the International Criminal Court." Sarah absorbed this with remarkable maturity. "And the people hunting you aren't just trying to silence a witness, they're trying to prevent war crimes prosecutions." "Exactly." Emma met Marcus's eyes. "I didn't lie about needing protection, Marcus. But I didn't tell you that protecting me means taking on people who've murdered federal judges to keep their secrets safe." The magnitude of what Marcus had committed to defending hit him like incoming artillery. This wasn't just about protecting a woman and child. This was about taking on a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of government. "Show me everything," he said finally. Emma hesitated. "Marcus, once you see this evidence, you become a target too. They'll assume you know everything I know." "I became a target the moment I let you through my door." Marcus's voice carried absolute resolve. "But I also became part of something that matters more than my own safety." Emma powered up a secure laptop, accessing files that painted a picture of systematic horror. Medical records showing illegal procedures on children, financial documents tracking payments to corrupt officials, correspondence revealing the scope of the trafficking network. "Jesus Christ," Marcus breathed, staring at photos of children who looked like Lily. "How many?" "Over 300 children in the past 5 years. The program was expanding internationally before I exposed it." Emma's professional mask slipped, revealing maternal rage. "They were planning to open facilities in Eastern Europe, targeting refugee children who had no documentation." Sarah stood abruptly, pacing with nervous energy. "Dad, we can't let this continue, even if it means fighting people with this much power." Emma stared at the teenager with something approaching awe. "Sarah, you understand that helping me means your family will never be safe again? That your normal life is over?" "My normal life was Dad crying himself to sleep every night and me pretending I didn't notice." Sarah's voice carried surprising strength. "This is the first time I've seen him have a purpose since Mom died. Besides, some things are worth fighting for." Marcus looked at his daughter, seeing not the teenager he'd been trying to protect, but the young woman she was becoming. "You're sure about this?" "I'm sure that little girl upstairs deserves better than running from monsters for the rest of her life." Sarah met his eyes. "And I'm sure that you're the right person to make sure she gets it." Emma's composure finally broke completely, tears of gratitude mixing with exhaustion and fear. "I've been carrying this alone for so long. I never imagined." "You're not alone anymore," Marcus said simply. "But Emma, no more secrets. If we're doing this, we're doing it as a team. Complete trust, complete honesty." Emma nodded, wiping her tears. "Complete honesty, even when it's terrifying." As dawn broke over the Maine coast, Marcus realized his world had fundamentally changed. He was no longer just a damaged veteran hiding from life. He was a soldier again, fighting the most important battle of his career. But this time, he was fighting for family, for justice, and for children who deserved better than the monsters who hunted them. The black SUVs arrived in Harbor Falls like an occupying army. By noon, 8 vehicles with government plates had positioned themselves at strategic points throughout the small coastal town, their occupants conducting what Sheriff Mills described as aggressive intelligence gathering. Marcus watched through binoculars as men in expensive suits questioned locals with the systematic thoroughness of a military operation. These weren't investigators, they were hunters closing in on prey. "They're showing photos again," Don reported over the radio. "But this time they're offering money, $10,000 for information leading to the arrest of a dangerous kidnapper and her victim." Emma's face went pale at the news. "They're escalating. My father's people are desperate." The afternoon brought worse news. Don arrived at Marcus's cabin with documents that made everyone's blood run cold. Federal arrest warrants for Dr. Emma Catherine Blackwood, wanted for kidnapping, child endangerment, and terrorist activities. "These are professionally forged," Don said grimly, examining the paperwork, "but they look legitimate enough to fool most law enforcement. They're claiming jurisdiction under national security provisions." Sarah studied the warrants with teenage directness. "They're calling Emma a terrorist? It's how they justify bypassing normal legal protections," Emma explained, her voice hollow with recognition. "Under terrorism statutes, they can detain suspects indefinitely without charges, deny access to lawyers, conduct enhanced interrogations." Marcus felt the familiar clarity of pre-combat assessment settling over him. How long before local law enforcement believes their story? Maybe hours, maybe days, but not long. Don met his eyes with the understanding that passed between veterans. "Marcus, I can't protect you from federal agents, even fake ones, if they produce proper-looking warrants." That's when Emma revealed the most devastating truth yet. "Lily isn't just a victim they experimented on," she said quietly, gathering the 4-year-old onto her lap. "She's a witness to murders. The night I rescued her, she saw them kill her original foster family when they tried to protect her." Marcus felt the world shift beneath him. Jesus Christ. The Hendersons were good people who loved Lily like their own daughter. When program officials came to take her for additional medical evaluation, they refused. That night, their house burned down with them inside. Emma's voice broke slightly. "Lily was supposed to die in that fire, too." Sarah stared at the little girl coloring peacefully in Emma's lap, trying to reconcile the image with the horror of her story. She remembers. Fragments, enough to identify faces, voices, specific details about the procedures. Emma stroked Lily's hair with protective tenderness. She's the only living witness to the program's most extreme measures. The magnitude of what they were protecting became crystal clear. This wasn't just about Emma's evidence. It was about keeping alive the only person who could provide first-hand testimony about multiple murders. Around 4 p.m., the hunters made their first direct move. A man in a federal agent costume approached Marcus's front door, badge displayed prominently, flanked by 2 partners who positioned themselves with tactical precision. "Mr. Thompson, Agent Davidson, Department of Homeland Security. We need to speak with you about harboring a federal fugitive." Marcus opened the door with the calm confidence of someone who'd faced down Taliban insurgents. "I'd like to see some identification." Agent Davidson produced credentials that looked absolutely authentic. "We have reason to believe you're sheltering Dr. Emma Blackwood and a kidnapped child. We're authorized to conduct a search of these premises. Do you have a warrant?" "Under the Patriot Act, we don't need one for terrorism-related investigations." Davidson's voice carried bureaucratic authority. "Stand aside, sir. This is a matter of national security." Behind him, Marcus heard Emma moving with practiced efficiency, implementing escape protocols they'd rehearsed. Sarah would take Lily to the hidden basement shelter, while Emma gathered essential documents and evidence. "I'm afraid I can't let you in without proper documentation," Marcus said evenly. "This is private property." Davidson's mask of professional courtesy slipped slightly. "Mr. Thompson, interfering with a federal investigation is a serious crime. We can do this the easy way or the hard way." "I'm a veteran who's buried too many friends defending the Constitution," Marcus replied. "The easy way is you show me a real warrant signed by a real judge. The hard way is you try to force entry into my home." The 3 men exchanged glances, their careful government agent personas revealing glimpses of something much more dangerous underneath. "So you have 30 seconds to produce Dr. Blackwood and the child," Davidson said, his hand moving toward his jacket. "After that, we'll be forced to use other methods." From inside the house, Marcus heard the subtle sounds of his family implementing emergency procedures, footsteps moving toward predetermined positions, the soft click of hidden panels opening. Emma's 3 years of preparation were about to be tested. "The Constitution gives me the right to demand proper identification from anyone claiming government authority," Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of his old military rank. "So far, all I've seen are badges any criminal could buy online." Davidson's patience finally snapped. "Last chance, soldier boy." "I haven't been a soldier for 3 years," Marcus replied, smiling grimly. "But I remember the training." The confrontation that followed would test everything Marcus had learned about combat, everything Emma had learned about survival, and everything their makeshift family had learned about protecting each other. As Davidson reached for his weapon, Marcus realized this was the moment that would define the rest of their lives. They could surrender, trust the system, and hope for justice through official channels. Or they could fight back against people who had already proven they would murder families to protect their secrets. The decision, when it came, was surprisingly easy. Marcus had sworn an oath to protect the innocent against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Today, that oath meant protecting a 4-year-old girl who had seen too much, a brilliant doctor who refused to stay silent about atrocities, and a 16-year-old daughter who deserved to live in a world where the truth mattered. "Sarah," he called softly, not taking his eyes off Davidson. "Remember what I taught you about the emergency procedures?" "Yes, Dad," came her steady reply from somewhere inside the house. "Emma, you know what to do." "We're ready." Emma's voice carried the calm competence of someone who'd been preparing for this moment for 3 years. As the fake federal agents made their final threats, Marcus Thompson made his choice. He would not surrender his family to people who tortured children and murdered witnesses. The war for justice was about to begin. Storm of Redemption. Chapter 9. The Complete Truth. The standoff lasted 30 minutes. Davidson and his men held positions outside while Marcus maintained defensive posture in his doorway, neither side willing to escalate first. It was Sheriff Mills' arrival that broke the tension and shattered the last illusions about the scope of the conspiracy. "Stand down," Dunn commanded, his service weapon drawn and pointed at Davidson. "These men are not federal agents." Davidson turned with practiced calm. "Sheriff, we showed you our credentials. I ran your badge numbers through federal databases. They don't exist." Don's voice carried deadly certainty. "Real Homeland Security has no record of Agent Davidson or this operation." Marcus watched Davidson's mask finally slip completely, revealing the professional killer underneath. "Sheriff, you're making a serious mistake." "The mistake is yours," Don replied. "Marcus, get your family to safety now." But as Marcus stepped back into his house, Emma emerged from the basement with Lily and Sarah, her face carrying the weight of final revelation. "There's something else," she said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "Something I couldn't tell you until I was certain you'd committed completely." Even with armed mercenaries outside, Marcus found himself focused entirely on Emma's words. "Lily isn't the only witness. There are other children hidden in safe houses across the country. I've been coordinating their protection for 2 years. Emma's composure was absolute now. "I'm not just a fugitive, Marcus. I'm running an underground network that's kept 17 child witnesses alive." The magnitude of Emma's operation hit Marcus like a revelation. "You're not just gathering evidence. You're conducting a resistance campaign. Doctors, nurses, social workers, even some federal agents who couldn't stomach what they saw. We've been building a coalition to destroy this network from within." Emma pulled out her encrypted phone, showing communications from contacts across multiple agencies. "But my father discovered the network. That's why they're moving so aggressively now." Sarah stared at Emma with new understanding. "You've been fighting a war this whole time, a war for children who can't fight for themselves." Emma knelt beside Lily, who was clutching her stuffed bear with 4-year-old composure. "Sweetheart, do you remember what I told you about the special people who help keep children safe?" Lily nodded gravely. The good people who fight the bad people. That's right. Uncle Mark and Sarah are good people too. They're going to help us keep all the children safe. Outside, the confrontation between Don and Davidson was escalating. Marcus could hear voices rising, the sound of vehicles repositioning. Time was running out. Emma, how many people are in your network? Marcus asked. 43 active members across federal agencies, hospitals, and law enforcement, including Sheriff Mills. He's been helping us for 18 months. Emma met his eyes directly. I didn't tell you because I needed to be certain you'd choose to fight even if you thought we were alone. Marcus felt the last pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. Emma hadn't just been running from her father's network. She'd been waging a systematic campaign against it, using her medical expertise and international contacts to build something unprecedented. The International Criminal Court case, that's not just your evidence. It's testimony from 17 child witnesses, documentation from dozens of professionals, financial records spanning 5 years. If we can get the children to safety and present our case, we can destroy the entire trafficking network. Emma's voice carried absolute conviction. But only if we can keep everyone alive long enough to testify. The sound of gunfire outside ended their conversation. Don's voice crackled over the radio. Marcus, they're not backing down. Get out now. Marcus felt the familiar calm of combat settling over him, but this time it was different. He wasn't fighting for abstract principles or distant objectives. He was fighting for Lily's innocent trust, for Sarah's fierce determination, for Emma's impossible courage, and for 16 other children whose only hope lay in their small family's ability to survive. Sarah, take Lily to the boat. Emma, gather the evidence. Marcus moved toward his weapons cache with practiced efficiency. It's time to find out if a broken veteran can still protect the people who matter. Emma touched his arm as he passed. Marcus, you're not broken. You're exactly what we've been waiting for. Outside, the battle for Harbor Falls and for the future of 17 vulnerable children was about to begin. Storm of Redemption. Chapter 10. Marcus's Choice. The gunfire outside stopped as suddenly as it had begun. In the sudden silence, Marcus faced the most important decision of his life, and it wasn't about tactics or survival. It was about what kind of man he wanted to be. Sarah stood in the doorway holding Lily's hand, her 16-year-old face showing remarkable composure. Dad, whatever you're thinking, we're with you. Marcus looked at his daughter, really looked at her. Since Claire's death, he'd been so focused on his own pain that he'd missed watching Sarah transform from a grieving child into a young woman of extraordinary courage. Sarah, you understand what this means. If we do this, if we really commit to Emma's mission, our quiet life is over forever. Our quiet life was you drinking yourself to sleep every night while I pretended not to notice, Sarah replied with brutal honesty. This is the first time in 2 years I've seen you care about something bigger than your own pain. Emma emerged from the basement with a tactical bag containing encrypted communications, evidence files, and emergency supplies. Her transformation was complete. No longer the terrified refugee, but a resistance leader who'd been fighting this war longer than anyone realized. Marcus, I need you to understand what you're choosing, Emma said, her voice carrying the weight of terrible knowledge. The 17 children we're protecting, they're scattered across safe houses from Alaska to Florida. If Senator Blackwood's people capture me, those children die. Not might die, will die. Marcus moved to the window, observing the tactical situation outside. Don had taken cover behind his patrol car, while Davidson's team had retreated to defensive positions. Professional standoff, but not indefinite. How many people has your network lost? Marcus asked. 6 in the past year. Dr. Martinez, who documented the medical procedures. Nurse Patterson, who helped children escape. Agent Brooks, who tried to work within the FBI. Emma's voice remained steady despite the pain. They make it look like accidents, suicides, random crimes, but we know. Lily tugged on Marcus's pants leg. Uncle Mark, are the bad people going to hurt Emma? Marcus knelt beside the 4-year-old, seeing in her eyes the same trust Sarah had shown him when she was small. The trust that said adults were supposed to protect children, supposed to make the scary things go away. Not if I can help it, sweetheart. Promise? The word hung in the air like an oath. Marcus had made that same promise to Sarah after Claire died, and he'd failed, retreating into alcohol and isolation instead of being the father she needed. But now, looking at Lily's innocent faith, he felt something he hadn't experienced since Afghanistan. Absolute moral clarity. I promise. Sarah stepped forward, her young voice carrying surprising authority. Dad, remember what you told me about Mom's last words? About how she made you promise to keep fighting for things that mattered? Marcus felt his throat tighten. Claire's final words in the hospital. Don't let the world make you bitter, Marcus. Keep fighting for the people who can't fight for themselves. She'd want you to do this, Sarah continued. She'd want us to be the kind of family that protects other families. Emma watched this exchange with tears in her eyes, recognizing the moment when Marcus Thompson stopped running from his past and chose to embrace his future. Emma, Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of his old military rank, I need complete tactical briefing. Safe house locations, communication protocols, extraction plans for all 17 children. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Emma's relief was palpable. Marcus, you understand this isn't just about protecting witnesses. We're taking on people who've corrupted federal agencies, murdered federal judges, operated with impunity for years. I understand that those children deserve better than the world they've been given, Marcus replied. I understand that my daughter is watching to see if her father is the kind of man who runs from fights that matter. And I understand that Claire would never forgive me if I let fear make me walk away from people who need help. Outside, Don's voice crackled over the radio. Marcus, we've got reinforcements coming. Real federal agents this time. Emma's people. But Davidson's team isn't backing down. Marcus moved with the purposeful efficiency that had made him an effective combat leader. Sarah, start the generator and establish communications with Emma's network contacts. Emma, prepare files for immediate transmission to international authorities. If this goes bad, your evidence needs to survive even if we don't. And if it goes well? Emma asked. Marcus checked his weapons with practiced competence, feeling the familiar calm of pre-combat clarity. If it goes well, those 17 children get to grow up in a world where the truth matters more than power. As sirens wailed in the distance, real federal agents arriving to support Emma's network, Marcus Thompson made his final choice. He would not be the broken veteran who hid from life. He would be the protector his family needed, the soldier worthy of his fallen comrade's sacrifice, and the man Claire had believed him capable of becoming. The battle for Harbor Falls was about to determine the fate of 17 children and the future of justice itself. The first shots shattered the pre-dawn silence at 4:47 a.m. Marcus, positioned behind his kitchen counter with a clear view of 3 approach routes, felt the familiar calm of combat settle over his nervous system. But this time, every instinct was focused not on survival, but on protection. Contact front, he called out, using military terminology that came as naturally as breathing. Davidson's team had abandoned subtlety, advancing on the cabin with professional precision. Emma crouched beside the radio equipment, maintaining communications with network contacts while treating a graze wound Don had sustained in the initial exchange. Her medical training and tactical awareness worked in perfect harmony. Doctor and resistance fighter combined. FBI units are 20 minutes out, she reported, her voice steady, despite bullets splintering the window frame above her head. Real ones this time. Agent Carter's team. Sarah moved through the house with remarkable composure, ensuring Lily remained in the reinforced basement, while coordinating emergency protocols Emma had taught her. At 16, she displayed the kind of courage Marcus recognized from veteran soldiers twice her age. The attackers had Marcus's cabin surrounded, but they'd made a critical miscalculation. They'd assumed they were facing a broken veteran hiding from life, not a combat-tested soldier defending everything that mattered to him. Sarah, Marcus called during a lull in gunfire. How's Lily? She's drawing pictures, Sarah replied, her voice carrying a mixture of amazement and protective tenderness. She says she's drawing the good people fighting the bad people. Emma's eyes filled with tears at the report, but her hands never stopped working, simultaneously treating Don's wound and coordinating with resistance members across the country. Marcus's military training took over completely. 3 tours in Afghanistan had taught him that defensive positions were about more than firepower. They were about protecting what couldn't be replaced. Today, that meant Emma's evidence, Lily's testimony, and the future of 17 children he'd never met but had sworn to protect. "Don, can you maintain radio contact with genuine federal backup?" Marcus asked, chambering a fresh round. "Affirmative," Don grimaced, pressing Emma's improvised bandage against his shoulder. "Carter's team is pushing hard. They know what's at stake." Outside, Davidson's voice carried over a tactical megaphone. "Thompson, you're harboring terrorists and kidnapped children. Surrender now and we'll consider mercy." Marcus's response was a precisely aimed shot that shattered the megaphone. Years of PTSD nightmares had actually sharpened his combat reflexes. His hands were steady, his breathing controlled, his tactical thinking crystal clear. "Emma," he called softly. "That evidence transmission complete." 60% uploaded to International Criminal Court servers, she replied, her fingers flying across the encrypted laptop. "If we can hold them for 10 more minutes, the entire case file will be secure." Sarah appeared at the top of the basement stairs. "Dad, Lily wants to know if Uncle Mark is winning against the bad people." The question hit Marcus harder than enemy fire. For 2 years, he'd been losing battles against his own demons, failing as a father and hiding from purpose. But today, protecting this impossible family that had found him during a storm, he was finally winning something that mattered. "Tell her Uncle Mark is doing just fine," he replied, taking careful aim at a figure moving between cover positions. Emma looked up from her communications equipment, meeting his eyes across the combat zone their home had become. "Marcus, whatever happens, you've given us something we never had before." "What's that?" "Hope. Real hope that justice might actually mean something." The sound of approaching helicopters filled the air. FBI aircraft carrying Agent Carter's team, real federal agents who'd been working with Emma's network for months. Davidson's mercenaries had minutes before their tactical advantage disappeared. Marcus felt the familiar pre-victory calm settling over him. They were going to survive this. Emma's evidence would reach international authorities. The 17 children would remain safe. And for the first time since Claire's death, he'd successfully protected the people who depended on him. "Sarah!" he called out. "Tell Lily the good people are definitely winning." As the first FBI helicopter touched down in the clearing behind his cabin, Marcus Thompson realized he'd found something he'd lost in the mountains of Afghanistan and the grief of Claire's death. The absolute certainty that some fights were worth everything and some families were worth dying for. The battle for Harbor Falls was ending, but the war for justice was just beginning. Within hours of the Harbor Falls standoff, the story exploded across every major news network. Emma's evidence files, safely transmitted during the firefight, had reached not only the International Criminal Court, but also investigative journalist Jake Morrison, whose network of contacts ensured simultaneous global coverage. "Senator's daughter exposes child trafficking conspiracy," screamed headlines from New York to London. But for Marcus, watching the coverage from a secure FBI safehouse, the most important moment came when Lily pointed at the television screen. "That's Emma!" she exclaimed with 4-year-old excitement. "She's on TV!" The secure video conference with the International Criminal Court began at 2 p.m. Emma, flanked by Marcus and Agent Carter, testified from an undisclosed location, while 17 children across the country watched from their own safe houses, finally understanding they were no longer alone. "Dr. Blackwood," the prosecutor began, "can you describe the scope of the trafficking network your father coordinated?" Emma's voice was steady, professional, devastating. Over 300 children across 7 states, spanning 5 years. The program used legitimate medical facilities as cover, targeting vulnerable populations, specifically because their disappearances wouldn't generate significant investigation. Marcus watched Emma transform once again, no longer the terrified refugee or the tactical resistance leader, but the brilliant pediatric surgeon who dedicated her life to protecting children. This was who she'd always been underneath the fear and desperation. Sarah sat beside Lily during the testimony. both girls holding hands as Emma methodically destroyed the network that had caused so much suffering. At 16, Sarah understood the historical significance of what they were witnessing. The financial records show payments to federal officials, state judges, hospital administrators, and private security contractors, Emma continued, displaying documents on screen. My father used his senatorial influence to ensure investigations were terminated and whistleblowers were eliminated. Agent Carter leaned forward. Dr. Blackwood, are you prepared to provide physical evidence of these claims? Emma held up the encrypted drive that had traveled with her from the beginning. This contains medical records for every child, financial transaction records, correspondence between network members, and video documentation of procedures that constitute torture under international law. The prosecutor's next question struck at the heart of their journey. Dr. Blackwood, what made you decide to risk everything to expose this conspiracy? Emma's composure cracked slightly as she looked at Lily. I found a 4-year-old girl scheduled for a neural development procedure that would have caused permanent brain damage. When I tried to protect her through official channels, I discovered that the corruption reached every agency I trusted. I realized that if good people don't fight for innocent children, then evil wins by default. Marcus felt tears in his eyes, not from PTSD triggers or grief, but from pride. Emma had risked everything for a child who wasn't even hers, building a network that saved 17 lives while sacrificing her own safety and identity. The hearing continued for 4 hours, with Emma providing testimony that unraveled 5 years of systematic atrocities. But the moment that would define the case came when the prosecutor asked about Lily specifically. This child witnessed the murder of her foster family. Yes, the Hendersons refused to surrender Lily for additional medical evaluation. That night their house was firebombed. Lily escaped through a basement window and hid in the woods for 2 days before I found her. And she can identify the perpetrators? Lily, who'd been listening with 4-year-old seriousness, suddenly stood up. The bad man had a scar on his face, right here. She pointed to her own cheek. And he smelled like cigarettes. And he said mean words about Mommy and Daddy Henderson. The courtroom fell silent. Even through video conference, the impact of a child's innocent testimony was devastating. Agent Carter presented additional evidence, arrests made simultaneously across 7 states, confiscated documents from Senator Blackwood's offices, and testimony from other network members who'd agreed to cooperate in exchange for protection. Senator Robert Blackwood was arrested this morning at his Washington residence, Carter reported, along with 43 co-conspirators across federal agencies, medical facilities, and private contractors. Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced since Afghanistan, the absolute satisfaction of a mission completed successfully. They'd protected Emma, saved Lily, preserved the evidence, and exposed a network that had brutalized hundreds of children. But the most important victory was smaller, more personal. Sarah reached over and took his hand during the hearing, her eyes bright with pride. Dad, you did it. You actually saved them. Emma, overhearing, looked at Marcus with gratitude that transcended words. We all saved each other. As the hearing concluded, Marcus realized that the broken veteran who'd found Emma and Lily during a storm was gone forever. In his place sat a man who'd rediscovered purpose, family, and the courage to fight for justice. The story would dominate news cycles for months, but for Marcus Thompson, the most important headline was much simpler. Sometimes broken people can heal each other, and sometimes love really is stronger than evil. 6 months after the Harbor Falls standoff, Marcus stood in the gallery of a federal courthouse, watching Senator Robert Blackwood receive a life sentence without possibility of parole. The once powerful politician looked frail and defeated. His empire of corruption collapsed by his own daughter's courage. The defendant orchestrated systematic torture and murder of over 300 children, Judge Harrison declared. This court finds the evidence overwhelming and the crimes unprecedented in their scope and cruelty. Emma sat beside Marcus, no longer hiding behind false identities or living in constant fear. The International Criminal Court had granted her full witness protection status, while her testimony had led to arrests across 4 countries and the dismantling of trafficking networks on 3 continents. How do you feel? Marcus asked quietly, as Blackwood was led away in shackles. "Empty," Emma admitted. "I thought I'd feel vindicated, but mostly I just feel sad for all the children we couldn't save in time." Sarah, now 17 and accepted to pre-med programs at 3 universities, had grown into a young woman whose strength amazed everyone who met her. She'd testified before Congress about the importance of believing children's testimony and protecting whistleblowers. "Dad," she whispered during the sentencing, "remember when you used to say that some battles couldn't be won?" Marcus smiled, recognizing his daughter's reference to his darkest post-Afghanistan days. "This one proved me wrong." The courthouse steps were packed with media, but Marcus's attention focused on the group of 17 young people standing together, the children Emma's network had saved, now ranging in age from 6 to 16, all present to witness justice finally served. Lily, now 5 and radiating the confidence of a child who knew she was protected and loved, ran to Marcus the moment they emerged from the courthouse. "Uncle Mark, did the bad senator go to timeout forever?" "Forever and ever," Marcus confirmed, lifting her up. In the months since Harbor Falls, Lily had blossomed from a traumatized 4-year-old into a bright, curious child whose nightmares had finally stopped. Agent Carter approached with the final statistics that would define their victory. 43 primary conspirators convicted, 7 trafficking networks dismantled internationally, 112 children recovered from active trafficking situations. "Dr. Blackwood, your evidence saved lives we didn't even know were at risk." Emma nodded, but Marcus could see the weight she still carried, the survivors' guilt that came from wondering about the children they'd been too late to help. "There's something else," Carter continued. "The investigation triggered by your case has led to policy changes in federal agencies, new protocols for protecting child witnesses, and international cooperation agreements. Your courage didn't just save these 17 children, it's creating systems to protect thousands more." That evening, Marcus stood on the rebuilt deck of his main cabin, watching the ocean that had once seemed like an endless expanse of isolation. Now it looked like possibility, a horizon full of new adventures for his expanded family. Emma found him there, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the peaceful expression of someone who'd finally stopped running. "The therapy center opens next month," she reported. "Trauma treatment for children, staffed by survivors who understand what they're going through. Lily wants to help with the art therapy program." Marcus had turned his boat shed into a counseling center for veterans and trauma survivors, combining Emma's medical expertise with his hard-earned understanding of healing from PTSD. They'd helped 37 veterans in the past 6 months, with success rates that amazed professional therapists. "Any regrets?" Emma asked, settling beside him. Marcus considered the question seriously. His quiet life was gone forever. They received media requests weekly, traveled constantly for speaking engagements, and maintained security protocols that reminded him daily of the enemies they'd made. Sarah would never have a normal teenage experience. Emma could never fully escape the shadow of what she'd uncovered. "Just one," he said finally. Emma tensed, perhaps expecting him to acknowledge the cost of their choices. "I regret that it took me 2 years after Claire's death to find a purpose worth fighting for." Marcus met her eyes directly. "But I don't regret a single day since you and Lily showed up in that storm." Emma's smile was radiant, the expression of someone who'd learned that love could triumph over even the darkest evil. From inside the house came the sound of Sarah teaching Lily to play guitar, their voices blending in a song about storms that bring unexpected gifts. Marcus realized that this, protecting innocence, fighting for justice, building something beautiful from the wreckage of trauma, was exactly what Claire had meant when she'd asked him to keep fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves. The broken veteran who'd hidden from life was gone forever, replaced by a man who'd learned that some families aren't born, but forged in the crucible of shared purpose and unconditional protection. As the sun set over the Maine coast, Marcus Thompson understood that redemption wasn't about forgetting the past, it was about using that past to build a future worth defending. 18 months after Senator Blackwood's conviction, Marcus stood in the expanded therapy center that had grown far beyond their original vision. What began as a converted boat, she'd now occupied 3 buildings on his coastal property, serving veterans and trauma survivors from across New England. Dr. Thompson Blackwood to the children's wing, came the announcement over the intercom. Emma had kept her maiden name professionally, but taken Marcus's name personally, a symbol of the family they'd chosen to build together. Marcus found Emma in the art therapy room, working with a 7-year-old boy whose parents had been killed in a military convoy attack. The child was painting a picture of his family, guided by Emma's gentle questions about colors and memories. "How's he doing?" Marcus asked quietly. "Better. Yesterday he told me he wants to be a soldier like his daddy, but a kind soldier who protects people." Emma's eyes were bright with the satisfaction that came from healing trauma rather than just surviving it. "He reminds me of someone I know." Sarah appeared in the doorway, now 18, and spending her gap year before medical school working at the center. She'd become remarkably skilled at connecting with teenage trauma survivors, using her own experience of loss and recovery. "Dad, we've got 3 new referrals from the VA hospital," she reported. 2 Afghanistan veterans and 1 Iraq war nurse. They specifically requested our program. The Thompson Blackwood Center for Trauma Recovery had developed a national reputation for innovative treatment, combining traditional therapy with peer support from survivors who'd successfully rebuilt their lives. Marcus led support groups for combat veterans, while Emma specialized in treating children who'd experienced medical trauma. "Where's Lily?" Marcus asked, noting the absence of their most enthusiastic volunteer. "Reading room," Sarah smiled. "She's helping Mrs. Patterson teach literacy to the younger kids. She says she wants to be a teacher like Emma when she grows up." Marcus found Lily, now 6, sitting cross-legged on a colorful rug surrounded by 4 children between ages 5 and 8. She was reading from a picture book about brave animals helping scared animals, her voice clear and confident. "And the mama bear said, 'You don't have to be afraid anymore because someone who loves you is always going to protect you,'" Lily read, then looked up at her audience. "Just like Uncle Mark protected me and Emma when the bad people came." Marcus felt his throat tighten with pride. Lily had transformed from a traumatized witness into a confident child who used her own experience to comfort others. Her nightmares had stopped completely, replaced by dreams about becoming a teacher and helping scared children feel safe. That evening, the family gathered for dinner in their rebuilt home, expanded to include guest rooms for visiting survivors and a larger kitchen to accommodate their frequent gatherings with other families from their network. "Jake Morrison called," Emma reported, passing a salad made from vegetables grown in their therapy garden. "His book about our case hit the bestseller list. He wants to donate his royalties to the center." Marcus nodded, pleased but not surprised. Their story had inspired dozens of others to come forward about various forms of institutional abuse, creating a movement that extended far beyond their original mission. "Speaking of books," Sarah said, "Dad, when are you going to finish your memoir? Veterans keep asking about it." Marcus had been writing about his journey from PTSD to purpose, documenting both the darkness of trauma and the possibility of recovery. The book had been therapeutic, but challenging, forcing him to revisit memories he'd spent years avoiding. "Soon," he promised. "I want to get the ending right." "What's the ending?" Lily asked, looking up from her careful arrangement of peas on her plate. Marcus considered the question seriously. "The ending is that broken things can be fixed. Scared people can become brave, and families aren't just born. They're chosen." Emma reached across the table to squeeze his hand. "That's a good ending." After dinner, they established their evening routine, Sarah helping Lily with reading, while Emma reviewed case files for the next day's sessions. Marcus stepped onto the deck to perform his nightly security check, a habit that had evolved from military paranoia into simple appreciation for the peaceful life they'd built. The ocean stretched endlessly before him, moonlight painting silver paths across the waves. 2 years ago, this view had represented isolation and despair. Now it symbolized possibility and peace. Emma joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the contentment that came from work that mattered. "The Peterson family wants to volunteer," she reported. "Their son graduated from our program 6 months ago, and now they want to help other military families." Marcus smiled, recognizing the pattern they'd seen dozens of times: trauma survivors becoming healers, protected children growing up to protect others, Broken families learning to help other families rebuild. "Remember when you thought this was just about keeping Lily safe?" Emma asked. "Now I know it was about learning that keeping people safe is what gives life meaning," Marcus replied. "Claire would be proud of what we've built here." Emma nodded, understanding that Claire's memory had become not a source of pain, but an inspiration for service. She'd love seeing Sarah grow into such a remarkable young woman, and she'd adore Lily. From inside the house came the sound of Sarah reading bedtime stories to Lily, their voices creating the soundtrack of a family that had chosen love over fear, purpose over comfort, and hope over despair. Marcus Thompson had found his way home, not to a place but to a purpose that honored his fallen comrades, his wife's memory, and his daughter's future. 2 years after the storm that changed everything, Marcus stood on the same main beach where he'd once lived in isolation, watching the most beautiful sight he'd ever witnessed. Emma walking toward him in a simple white dress, with Lily as flower girl and Sarah as maid of honor. The wedding was small, just their chosen family and the friends who'd become part of their extended network of survivors and healers. Sheriff Mills performed the ceremony, his weathered face bright with joy as he married the woman who'd saved 17 children to the man who'd learned to save himself. "Marcus Thompson," Emma said during their vows, "you found me in a storm and taught me that some shelters become homes, some protectors become family, and some broken people heal each other into something stronger than either could be alone." Marcus's voice was steady despite his emotions. "Emma Blackwood, you showed me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's loving someone so much that their safety matters more than your own. You gave me back my purpose, my family, and my faith that good people can still win." Lily, now 7 and radiating confidence, stepped forward with the rings. "These are special rings," she announced to the gathered witnesses, "because they mean Uncle Mark and Emma choose to be family forever, just like they chose me and Sarah." As Marcus slipped the ring onto Emma's finger, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. The broken veteran hiding from life was gone, replaced by a man who'd learned that healing came not from forgetting trauma, but from using it to protect others. Sarah's maid of honor speech brought tears to every eye. "2 years ago, my dad was drowning in grief, and I was pretending not to notice. Then a storm brought Emma and Lily to our door, and suddenly we weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. Emma taught me that doctors don't just heal bodies, they heal families. Dad taught me that heroes aren't people without fear. They're people who love something more than they fear anything." After the ceremony, their expanded family gathered for dinner on the same deck where Marcus had once contemplated ending his pain. Now the space buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the voices of children who'd learned that safety was possible. "The International Foundation is fully operational," Agent Carter reported, now serving as a board member of their anti-trafficking organization. "Emma's protocols for protecting child witnesses have been adopted in 23 countries. The Thompson-Blackwood method is being taught at medical schools worldwide." Marcus smiled, remembering when their biggest goal was simply surviving another day. Now their work was creating systemic change that would protect vulnerable children for generations. Lily approached Marcus during the reception, tugging on his jacket with the seriousness that still occasionally surfaced when she remembered her early trauma. "Uncle Mark, I mean Daddy Mark, are you happy?" The question hit him with unexpected force. For 2 years after Claire's death, happiness had seemed impossible, even selfish. But looking at his new wife dancing with Sarah, at Lily's bright smile, at the dozen other survivor families celebrating with them, Marcus understood that happiness wasn't betraying Claire's memory. It was honoring her final wish that he keep fighting for people who mattered. "I'm very happy, sweetheart. Are you?" "I'm happy because our family keeps growing," Lily said with 7-year-old wisdom. "First it was just you and Sarah, then Emma and me. Now we have all the kids at the center and Mrs. Patterson who teaches reading, and Sheriff Mills who makes funny jokes. Families that choose each other are the biggest families." As the evening wound down, Marcus and Emma walked to the water's edge where their story had begun. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, moonlight painting silver paths across the waves. The same view that had once represented despair, now symbolizing infinite possibility. "Any regrets?" Emma asked, echoing a question from their early days together. Marcus considered carefully. Their quiet life was gone forever. They traveled constantly, spoke at conferences, testified before legislative committees. They faced ongoing security concerns, and the weight of knowing their story had made them targets for people who preferred shadows to sunlight. "Just one," Marcus said, pulling Emma close. "I regret that it took Claire's death and 2 years of hiding to teach me that some storms bring exactly what we need, even when we don't know we need it." Emma's smile was radiant in the moonlight. "That's not a regret, Marcus. That's gratitude." From the house behind them came the sound of Sarah playing guitar, while Lily sang a song they'd written together about storms that bring families. Sheriff Mills's laughter mixed with Agent Carter's voice, sharing stories with other survivors who'd become part of their chosen family. Marcus Thompson had learned the most important lesson of his life. Redemption wasn't about forgetting the past or fixing what was broken. It was about using your scars to heal others, your strength to protect the vulnerable, and your love to build something beautiful from the wreckage of trauma. The broken veteran was gone forever, replaced by a husband, father, healer, and protector who understood that some families are forged in storms and some love is stronger than any darkness. As they walked back toward their home, filled with laughter, healing, and hope, Marcus realized that Claire's final words had come true. He hadn't let the world make him bitter. He'd kept fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves, and in doing so, he'd found his way home.